Okay, now let's talk about number patterns. So what are number patterns? So normally number patterns are a series of numbers arranged according to a certain pattern. For example, let's take the number pattern of odd numbers. For example, 1, the next odd number is 3, the next odd number is 5, the next odd number is 7, and so on. This number pattern goes. Or let's say another number pattern may be even numbers. So the first number of the number pattern is 2, then next you have 4, you have 6, you have 8, and so on. So these are the most basic two number patterns. There may be a lot of number patterns based on different mathematical patterns. So when we are talking about number patterns, it's important that we identify certain terms. Now, for example, in a number pattern, the first number is called the first term. So in a number pattern, these numbers are called terms. So 1 is a term, 3 is a term, 5 is a term. So the first number is called the first term. Similarly, if you take two numbers, two consecutive numbers, so if you take 5 and 7 here, so these two numbers are called successive terms. Successive terms. So if you take 1 and 3, they are successive terms. If you take 3 and 5, they are successive terms. If you take 5 and 7, they are successive terms, and so on. So the first number in the number pattern is called the first term. Two consecutive terms in a number pattern is called successive terms. So another term you need to get to know is, if you take two successive terms, let's say 3 and 5, if you take two successive terms, the first term, so here if you take 3, the first term is called the antecedent term. The antecedent term. Okay. So if you take two successive terms, the first term is called the antecedent term. So the next term is called, so if you take 3 and 5, 3 is the antecedent term and 5 is called the consequent term. So if you take 5 and 7, 5 will be the antecedent term and 7 will be the consequent term. Okay. So another term in a number pattern is the difference between two successive terms. So now if you take any number pattern, so there is actually a difference. So now for example, if you take two successive terms, right, there is a difference. So the difference between 1 and 3 is 2. The difference between 3 and 5 is 2. The difference between 5 and 7 is 2. So how do you calculate the difference between two successive terms? So how do you calculate that? The way you calculate this is a consequent term consequent term minus antecedent term. So if you take 3 and 5, 3 is the antecedent term and 5 is the consequent term. So how do I find the difference between two successive terms in this number pattern? So we take two successive terms, so it can be 1 and 3, 3 and 5, or 5 and 7, any two successive terms. So here, if you take 3 and 5, the consequent term is 5 minus the antecedent term is 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So 2 in this number pattern, 2 is the difference between two successive terms.